Okay, so let's talk about how we can work through and solve this particular situation about graphing a piecewise function. Right, so we have this function f of x equals x squared as long as x is less than or equal to 0, and we have it equal x minus 3 as long as x is greater than 0. So a good thing to do first is to plot our points. So once we plot our points, right, and we plotted the point 0, 0 because I do include 0 and I have that closed, and then -1 squared and -2 squared is 4 and -3 squared is 9. And so then I can connect the dots for that side of my piecewise function, and I should connect them with a curve and I can draw the arrow. Right? Then I want to draw the second piece of my function. And notice that this is if x is greater than 0, but it does not include an equal sign, so we're going to use an open circle. Right? So we can plot those points. All right, so I can plot those points and note that I have the open circle. I have the open circle at x is 0. And I could use a straight edge and come over and just kind of connect the dots with my straight edge and draw the arrow to indicate that I'm going on infinitely. Okay? Now, what type of discontinuity is this? This type of discontinuity would be a jump discontinuity because we have a jump in our function at this value, right? We are not having our function goes towards infinity at the discontinuity, so we call it a jump discontinuity. And what about the domain and the range? Well, our domain would be all real numbers, right? The domain would be all real numbers because we know that the general domain for x squared is all real numbers, and we are defined at 0. And the domain for linear functions is all real numbers. And even though we aren't defined at 0 here, our function is defined at 0 based on the x squared, so our domain is all real numbers. This is another notation you can use for all real numbers, that x is an element of the set of all real numbers. Now the range would be everything from -infinity all the way up to -3, and then everything from 0 all the way to positive infinity, right? The range is my possible outputs. I do not include the -3, and I never include the infinity. And so that's why you see these brackets going outwards. Of course, you may choose to use the brackets going or use parentheses to indicate the same thing, right? Or you may choose to indicate it using inequalities, right? That these are three representations of the same thing in terms of representing the range, okay? So that's working with a piecewise defined function.